Well, welcome to a new series we're calling Cranes and All, proudly sponsored by All Crane in Auckland. So we're going to be looking at old cranes, new cranes. We're going to go to some of the projects that the new cranes are working on at the moment and see what they do and how they do it. And then we're also going to look at the old cranes from the 1950s, 60s and 70s. I just see there's some old cranes lying about from old trucks like the Leyland, the Foden, the Comma, and trucks like that, Ford D series and Dodge even. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at those old cranes, see if we can find people who used to drive them and find out what they did. So lots of interesting stuff ahead, so sit back, relax and enjoy the first episode of Cranes and All. So what we've got to do now is go and find some cranes. So I know where there's a couple in a paddock, so let's go and find them. With me is Alan, and Alan, welcome to our little show, Cranes and All. And what we've got here is a butterbox truck crane, or crane carrier, I suppose they call them. And maybe you could tell us just a little bit about this history.
We inherited this from Carter Holt's East Valley Mill. It was actually used to build the mill.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When it was built. I'm not too sure of the timing, but later on it got to the point where to maintain the ability to use it, every 2 years it had to be surveyed. They had to maintain, because they worked 24 hours a day there, they had to keep 2 drivers up to spec to operate it, and it just became too expensive to maintain the maintenance and so forth on it and the license to use it, and it became cheaper to just, when the few times they wanted a crane, to hire somebody in. It sat at the mill for a long time not used, and then it was offered to the museum. Now the mill is quite a long way that direction over the hills. It wasn't able to be driven. We took my 4-wheel drive tractor round through the fire breaks from the top of the hill behind us, towed it back here. Took us quite a while. It had no brakes. It was quite an exercise. It's been parked in several places here, and unfortunately recently, while we've been cleaning up other areas of the back of the museum park here, it got shoved down in the corner with another one that's behind us. The word I was thinking before was the survey that they have to keep on these cranes.
So not only you have to have a warrant and user charges, you have to have a survey sticker as
well.
Wow.
Yes, and just maintaining that, a qualified man to come and check it, I think it was every 2 years, just became too expensive.
So it's cheaper to hire one.
Yeah.
Wow. And Alan, just looking in this cab, it's a long time since somebody sat in there.
Oh yes.
But just looking at the gear sticks, you actually, you know how it's been cut off, cut in half. You actually put your hand underneath the bonnet there to change your gear, or put something in here.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you're sitting next to the engine there, and all that engine fumes is coming back at you. So yeah, all windows open. Amazing.
Yes. Probably at some point we'll have it going.
Excellent.
Most things at the museum here we get going.
Yeah, and it's absolutely amazing, guys. I mean, we've been doing this for 12 years now and seen a big pile of rust, and then we go back sort of 2 years later and that pile of rust is just transformed into something absolutely wonderful.
I don't know whether this will ever become wonderful, but it'll probably be able to operate.
Excellent. Alan, this is a Foden, one hell of a truck. Just looking at the size of the front wheels, it probably had a decent sort of 9800 horsepower engine in it back in its time, and it's got an enormous crane stuck on the back of it, which would have been its whole load. And then you find you put the stabilisers out, and it's a big thing. So maybe you know something about this as well.
I don't actually know very much about this. This came to the museum before I was involved here. Kitson Construction. Now I understand they donated it. Doug Wilson, who is a member of the museum at the time, he was involved. He was a well driller and so forth, and he's got a bit of machinery still parked here. He sort of organised it, I believe, to come here, and he used to keep an eye on it. And I think in earlier times he used to start it up every now and again, but that hasn't happened for quite a while, unfortunately.
I can see that.
Like the other one, it's right down the back corner of the museum, where we further back we've been doing some development and cleaning up. We do plan an area to display 4 or 5 cranes.
Just looking at the size of the chassis there, it's just absolutely enormous. But it's just got the most enormous chassis, this thing, and a great big steel bar here to put that boom so it sits out the front when you're driving along. And that little half cab, you sort of, a bit like that butter box over there, I bet you've got to put your arm underneath the bonnet there to change the gears. And we saw an old GMC, same thing, half a cab, but all the gears were under the bonnet.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And the crane wasn't much smaller than this, sitting on the back of a GMC.
Yeah.
GMCs, by the way, folks, were made to take 2 ton anywhere.
Look at that. That much goes. Oh, it's a dicky little seat.
Sure is. So these are brake clutches?
I guess so.
Yep.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levers and a throttle.
And it's all running off the... No, it's got its own engine in there, hasn't it?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep, big clutch in there. Quite a big engine.
And you can look up through the top and see where that boom's going. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing.
You'd have a pickle driving this.
Yeah, they all do something. All sideways, up, down.
Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, 2 more clutches. One.
I think if you can drive one of these, you can pretty much fly a helicopter.
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Come and have a look at these pedals, folks.
This one does something, and that one pushes it back.
Help.
And each of these work.
Yep.
And then need a bit of grease, I think, on a few things to get going here.
And that even that seat sort of, it's just went up from a bicycle seat, really.
Yeah. Little wee thing. I don't think I'd like to sit on this all day.
No. It says it's 9.9 tonne or tone. So that's 9,900 kilos.
Yes, I'm pretty sure the 2 extensions that are in the grass behind us belong to this one.
Right.
So 2 more extensions in there should be pretty long.
Yeah. So just looking at these stabilisers, you'd probably need to just pull them out by hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of grab, pull, and then see it's got a winder here, so you'd have a big thing on there to wind it like a crank handle or something. In 1955, Tadano introduced Japan's first hydraulic crane truck, the OC2, with a 2-ton lifting capacity. In 1998, Tadano introduced the largest capacity all-terrain crane with a 550-ton lifting capacity. They're still producing all-terrain cranes, so if you're looking for a mobile all-terrain crane, check out Allcrane at www.allcrane.co.nz. Fassi, an extraordinary crane manufactured in Italy. The amazing breadth of the Fassi range with over 30 models and 300,000 configurations means the cranes offered can be truly purpose-built, tailor-made to suit the needs of the customer who chooses Fassi products mainly for their quality and fittings. So when choosing a crane, why not choose Fassi? You'll be glad you did. With me is Tim Elliott from Kepler Motors in Hamilton, and good on you, Tim. Maybe tell us a little bit about the vehicles you sell.
Right, well, we've got an absolutely amazing range from the GWM Haval product lineup. We start with a small SUV with the Jolian, and we start from that at $27,990 plus on-road costs. We then go through that range. We have 3 models in the Jolian range. We then go into the H6, which is the next size up, your mid-size SUV, and that we actually have 5 models in that range.
Wow.
Yeah, starting from $33,990.
Yeah.
So when you look at the value for money in our range, and we even have right through to a hybrid like our new car behind me here. As well as the SUVs, we have a stunning lineup of the GWM Cannon, which is New Zealand Autocar Magazine's Ute of the Year for 2020.
Wow.
Not only has it come up Ute of the Year because of its build quality, ride quality and safety, now 5-star safety rating in 2021, it is an absolutely amazing package. You don't get the harsh ride that you traditionally get in a ute, but you get all the safety and benefit of having 3-ton towing capacity, up to a ton payload in the back, but also room for your guests in the back of the vehicle if you're taking a few along with you.
With a bit of legroom.
With a bit of legroom and vents in the back so they have actually get a bit of fresh air as well.
That's marvellous. Get hold of Tim and I'm sure he'll look after you.
Look forward to hearing from you.
What we've got here is a Colt 70T truck crane, and it came from England, and I was just doing a bit of homework, and these things started off with an AEC engine and designed by Coles and put together by Coles, one of the first hydraulic booms, and of course it's got wire to control the ropes. This one belonged to Gibbons in Nelson, and he was telling me it was just a great all-purpose crane. Does all sorts of little jobs all around the town and the countryside, and they absolutely loved it. The thing about this is, one of the ones I looked at online, it's got a bonnet, sort of like the radiator stuck out here. So this is the model after that. So they've done away with the radiator business and put the cab all into one piece. And here's the driver's station. And just looking in their cab, nice driver's seat. It's probably got a 4-speed box with a 2-speed diff. But on the other side is another control which is back to front, and against the back wall there are all these arms and levers that operate that crane. So just have a look in there. That's amazing. All in one in the cab. So there you go. There's the other side of the cab, so that once the driver gets to where he wants to go, positions the crane, puts out the stabilizers, and then he climbs into the opposite side, and the seat's facing the wrong way, if you like, and operates the crane from over there, all using the truck motor to do it. And so on the back here we've got the crane itself, operated from the cab of the truck. Hydraulic lifters to lift the crane up. It can spin left and right, both with the hydraulics, and a wire rope to do the lifting. The winch is up on the top there, so everything you need to be a crane. And just underneath there, there's a little dial that tells you the degree in which your boom is sitting. So Gibbons from Nelson bought this crane second hand, and it was built in 1969, came to New Zealand in 1969 and operated around the Taupo area. So after it's done its work there, Gibbons has bought it, and he's had it for years and years and years, and now it's ended up here at Higgins Park near Wakefield with all the other museum pieces, the trucks, the tractors, the stationary engines and all that sort of thing. So he's donated it to the museum, and that's where it'll live. So just looking through the operator's window there's another windscreen wiper on the back window. So if it's raining, it's got glass roof, so he's looking up and seeing what the crane's doing. And so there you go. I just thought this was just a fantastic piece of New Zealand history, the old Coles crane. Well, I'm sitting in what's known as a KD30, and it's just sitting here under the tree. It's gone past its use by date, and it's now part of a collection for the museum here at Higgins Park near Wakefield. So what I'm going to do is just describe what's in this cab, and everything. The whole crane operated from the cab, and obviously you put it all out of gear, and then you could travel along the road and arrive at the job and get it done. But come and have a look at all these little gear sticks they got in here. And so it must have been a hell of a thing to drive, particularly along the road. And they were telling me with this gear stick, you're driving along the road and suddenly you've got the gear stick in your hand, and oh shit. And that happened to me once. I've had a gear stick come out going along the motorway actually. But this, you have to sort of jam it back in and get another gear, and off you go again. Kiwi ingenuity to make this thing sort of do what you wanted it to do. But anyway, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 levers in front of me, so I guess you're just sitting here, your crane's sitting up there, you can see everything you need to see out there. This used to be glass, so you could look up and see what the tip was doing. But this one slewed it, this one up and down at it, this one left and right at it. And I think these ones, this one's backwards and forwards, and these were the to put out the stabilizers, these two here. A little pump to put into gear so the hydraulics worked. And yeah, so it's even got a grease sniffles here that you can just sort of grease it from the cab. And it sort of greased everything. So you just pump those full of grease and the greasing's done. A delightful thing, rather than have to get out and climb under everything and find grease nipples. You just did them all from in here. Great innovation, I suppose, for its time. But the jib extended twice as far as it is, and you had a little extension jib that went with it as well. And I think that if you've done that, you can probably lift another couple of ton. So it's rated for 7 ton. I think it could lift 7 ton, no worries at all.
Close.
And but I guess the jobs that this thing would be doing, maybe lifting pipes and you know, put a swimming pool in or something like that.
I believe it first came down from Wellington. It worked on the motorway.
Oh, okay.
In Wellington on the Hutt motorway.
Okay.
And then Anchor Dorman brought it. And they had it on the slipway in Nelson for many, many years, and it used around the yard, engineering yard, and then it was used on the slipway for pulling shafts out, like boats like the Westport cement boat and the Holman, all the quite bigger stuff, 1500 ton type size boats. So she was used a lot on that for pulling the rudders off, shafts out, propellers.
Yeah,
a lot of heavy lifting on it.
Yeah.
And it was good because you could go in low underneath the back of the boat with the hydraulics.
Oh, because it's a little low thing, isn't it? It's not,
yeah, extend out, come back in.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the cab. So I'll get out now and we'll have a bit more chat about this unusual crane. So it's a squat little crane, and it's relatively low. And so my brother used to work on the ship called the Westport that went from Westport to Onehunga, delivering cement. And when that had to go up onto the slipways, this was the machine that pulled the rudders off, pulled the propeller and the shafts, because it could get in underneath the back of the boat and grab it and then just drag it out, and that's one of the things it did. And so this is a Kyo. There's a name on the back, I'm not quite sure how to say it, but it was made in Japan, and it came to New Zealand in about the early 1970s. And as I said, it's certainly an odd looking crane. Here's the stabilizers, and they just go down, lift. So one of those right hand levers in the cab did that. So there's 4 of them, of course. And there's only a single wheel here and a dual wheel at the front, which basically means when you steer the thing, you're steering this, the back wheels are doing the steering, not the front. So I guess if you're going down the road, you have to have that in the back of your mind, that, you know, it goes a bit opposite to what you really want it to do. There's the engine that runs it, a little diesel, nice, nice broken back windows. So when this thing was operational, these would have lifted it right off the ground. The boom worked at 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock. So you're sort of like, that was the sort of the working arm, but it did rotate fully. And the back of a boat, like the Westport, it was sort of like so, but this being so low could climb almost under it. Then it would extend the boom out, hook onto the shaft, and then just drive backwards with the shaft on the hook and swing it around and put it wherever they wanted it. But as I said, it's just a cute little crane that was, and that did. In 1955, Tadano introduced Japan's first hydraulic crane truck, the OC2, with a 2-ton lifting capacity. In 1998, Tadano introduced the largest capacity all-terrain crane with a 550-ton lifting capacity. They're still producing all-terrain cranes, so if you're looking for a mobile all-terrain crane, check out Allcrane at www.allcrane.co.nz. Fassi, an extraordinary crane manufactured in Italy. The amazing breadth of the Fassi range, with over 30 models and 300,000 configurations, means the cranes offered can be truly purpose-built, tailor-made to suit the needs of the customer, who chooses Fassi products mainly for their quality and fittings. So when choosing a crane, why not choose Fassi? You'll be glad you did. And what's behind me is a truck crane that Todd Ross Todd made back in the day, probably early 70s. And it's what this particular crane does is unload these trawlers with fish. And it's been here a lot of years doing that. But I just remember there's some photographs of 3 of these things sitting outside Todd Ross Todd in Hamilton. And they've built them, and so what I know about this one is it's built on a Thornycroft chassis. It's got a AEC Matador engine, and I don't know what the engine is that's running the crane. It could be anything, but anyway, it's just great to see something old, something original and something still working here with this old Todd crane. It says on this logo Todd Crane Carrier Hamilton, which is great to see. And we'll just pop down the back and just have a look at the actual crane. In the cabin here we've got 3 levers, and there's 2 pedals on this side, 2 pedals on the other side, and of course there's a seat for the driver, and that boom extends out. It's got a little extension on the end, but this is the driving station. It's certainly got a comfortable seat, not like the old steel seats when you're operating cranes off the back of a GMC, which we'll see during the show. Obviously runs on hydraulics, because there's hydraulic pipes all over the place that operate this. And as I said before, It's just used to lift fish out of trawlers. A fancy looking homemade twister on the top of this, and that comes out, of course, to stabilise the whole thing. But that cabin, let's have a look in the truck driver's cabin. So what we've got here is the cabin that drives the thing. So we've got an accelerator, a brake, and this is obviously the clutch. We've got twin sticks. Not quite sure what each of those do. Maybe one puts the crane into gear or something like that. And just a common English dashboard, English dials, and the engine, as I said, was an AEC, so obviously the dials that go with it are AEC as well. But just looking back at the crane, you can see how that cabin is just sitting out on its own, so it sort of can swing left and right, but he's controlling it from the front of all the engine and what have you. And as you can see, all the pipes and hydraulics that run the thing. So back in its day, it would have been wonderful. But I guess it's gone past its use by date now, and all it's used for, as I said, is lifting fish out of trawlers. So there you go, the Tid crane carrier. Great bit of New Zealand history. Next week we go aboard the steamship crane Higgins, moored in Wellington. Higgins was built in Glasgow, Scotland about 1929 and was steamed to New Zealand back in the day. We look at various aspects of the ship and talk to the men and women who look after her these days. So let's have a look at the engines that actually run the crane.
And there's the steam pressure, currently 85, 83 psi. So when we want to run the engines, we have to warm them up. We've just been warming them up, and we've got it set up for this main engine to work. That's got two cylinders, you see there, 2 pistons and cylinders. That's the main engine for the lifting cable and for raising and lowering the jib. These are the controls which come down from the driver's cab. You see it's got universal joints on it there and a counterweight just there. Yep. They go back under the floor and up those big steel rods over there to the driver's cab. So the driver can alter the amount of steam coming in and also the direction in which the engines are turning.
And he sends us instructions via these lights as to what he wants to do.
These are the engines.
So back in the olden days on the sail ships and the early steamships, they had a bridge, which is what that is, going from one side to the other, and the steering wheel was pretty much in the middle. So that was what was commonly known as the bridge, and it's still called the bridge today, where you steer the boat. Well, I just found this absolutely fascinating. All how the crane works, how the boat works, how everything works, and the crew of guys that are on this boat as volunteers, wonderful people.